Chapter 1. Wednesday, August 19, at 8:15 a.m.
Go ahead. Answer your phone. You and I both know what's really important to you.
No, he didn't just say that. Detective Joe Reed-Powell barely heard her ringing cell phone as she clenched her fists. She shouted, "Don't you dare make this about my work! You slept with another woman!" Joe reached for the ceramic bowl on the counter and heaved it towards her husband. Bryan Powell leapt to the side as the bowl smashed into the doorframe, sending leftover pancake mix and small ceramic pieces flying across the floor. Her husband stared back at her. His emotions warred on his face. Without a word, he grabbed his keys and walked out of the kitchen towards the garage. Tears streamed down the side of her face as she heard Bryan's Ford Mustang roar to life. The rage swirling inside her was so overwhelming. Joe closed her eyes and leaned against the kitchen counter for support. She gasped for breath as waves of anger threatened to buckle her knees. Finally, she let out a wounded cry that rose from deep inside and wept. "How could you do this to us?" In all 7 years of their marriage, Joe had never been suspicious of Bryan's behavior before. She had never had a reason to be concerned. But in recent months, he'd become distant. This morning, he had left his phone on the kitchen counter. When Joe heard the tiny bell tone, she picked up his phone to bring it to him, but for some reason felt compelled to look at the text message. "I have no regrets. A." She knew the text was from Bryan's coworker, Alexis Davenport. The text could have been innocent, but it didn't take any of Joe's detective skills to recognize the guilt on Bryan's face when she asked him about the message. Bryan probably would have never confessed the affair if she hadn't interrogated him about his whereabouts yesterday. It was so unlike Bryan to forget to pick up their son from Joe's parents' house. Everyone, including BJ, was upset and worried. This week had already been a struggle with the new school year starting for the first grader. Besides, that was her thing to lose track of time. Joe lost count of the number of times she was so focused on a case she completely forgot about time. Yesterday, her steadfast husband forgot about his own child because he was entangled with another woman. Bryan tried to convince Joe that he was ending the affair. He should have never started the affair. Her cell phone rang again. She lifted her head from the counter, not sure if she should answer it or not. Joe pulled her phone from the clip on her pants and looked at the screen. It was her partner, Pete McConnelly, no doubt calling about a brand-new crime scene. Joe closed her eyes, praying for her voice to sound normal. She answered the phone on the third ring. "What you got, Pete?"
"Everything all right, kid? Usually you would have answered by now."
She cleared her throat, trying to shake the emotions clinging to her. "Sorry, Pete. Rough morning. Where do you need me?"
"Pinewood Park Apartments. You're not going to like this one, Joe."
"I'll be there soon." Joe frowned after Pete hung up. She clipped the phone back to her side, thinking about Pete's statement. There weren't many crimes that surprised her anymore. Bryan's affair did surprise her, and Joe wasn't sure how she was going to be able to cope the rest of the day. She cringed at the broken bowl on the floor, thinking matters could have been worse. She had made it a habit to leave her gun at work since she didn't like keeping the weapon around her son. She had been with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department for 9 years and knew how quickly domestic violence could elevate. Maybe Bryan's leaving was wise. Joe went over to the sink and splashed her face with cold water. She patted her face dry with a paper towel. One thing for sure. She couldn't leave the mess since it was her turn to pick up BJ from her parents' house today. Joe was thankful the school bus had already picked up her son before she discovered the incriminating text message on Bryan's phone. She grabbed the broom and swept up the broken pieces. Then she wet paper towels and wiped up all the pancake mix she could see on the wall and floor. Satisfied with her quick cleanup, Joe grabbed her keys and headed out to her own car in the garage. As she stepped outside to lock the side door, the late summer humidity crept through her cotton shirt. Joe's physical discomfort was no match for the growing unease inside her mind. After she climbed into the Ford Taurus, she searched for Pinewood Park Apartments and pulled up the route on the GPS. She said a silent prayer before starting the engine. She had no choice but to put on her detective hat now.